Welcome back to the Tip of the Ice-Burgh podcast, brought to you as always by the Hockey Podcast Network. We're going to start off this segment with a little Sully Speak. And if you are new to the program, Sully Speak is when we take a nice little snippet from Mike Sullivan's press conference, we break it down, and we react to what we see. This one coming from his post-game press conference on Monday following the Penguins' 5-3 win against the Vegas Golden Knights.
Well, we knew he was going to play with a lot of energy. You know, he's in his hometown. Yesterday was his birthday. He was excited to get back in the lineup. So we knew we were going to get a guy that was going to play an inspired game, and I thought he did that. You know, Zucker is a real good player. You know, as I said the other day when I was asked about, you know, his overall game this year, and saying that the only thing that hasn't been there in our mind is just a little bit of finish. You know, it hasn't been from a lack of opportunity. As a matter of fact, he's been one of our leading guys with respect to primary scoring chances in the games that he's played in. So, you know, we're obviously thrilled for him. I'm sure that should give him a boost of confidence. But you know, we believe he's a real good player. You know, when he played with Gino and Cappy in the first round last year in the playoffs. You know, we really like that line and what they were able to accomplish. So that we believe that line has the makings of being a pretty explosive line.
That's head coach Mike Sullivan after Monday night's game against the Vegas Golden Knights, talking about Jason Zucker in his first game back after a week-to-week injury for his lower body. Also mentioning the fact that he likes him on the line with Evgeny Malkin and Kasperi Kapanen. Horwat, does that sound like a guy in Zucker who sounds like he's going to be on the trading block?
Possibly.
I don't
up that trade value. Put him with those players who we know can play. Watch him perform, build some stats, and then poof, out the door. But at the same time, I always forget Jason Zucker is from out west.
Yeah.
He said hometown. I said, who are we talking about? Who's from out there? I always forget Jason Zucker's from California.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I always just assume he's from Minnesota. I don't know why.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, I think sticking him with the good guys, this team does like seeing him play there because we're paying him to do that, and it's kind of why we got him in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
But when it's not working out, I mean, his 2 goals last night were his first goals in, even without an injury, a lot of games.
Yeah.
I mean, he hasn't scored a goal. He's got a couple assists in there, not a ton, but he hadn't scored a goal before last night since November 22nd. That's all of December. Admittedly, you were hurt for the last half of it, but still, the Penguins didn't play a lot in that last half either.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know how many genuine games Jason Zucker really missed. I'm trying to just remember, but just you got to be better than that, and hopefully, playing with those 2 does it.
Yeah,
I'd love to see him, take off and be a good player, but I think it might be good for him to find a change of scenery. I don't know.
When Jason Zucker was initially traded to the Pittsburgh Penguins, and we've talked about this, ad nauseum, because he is a heavy topic of discussion among Penguins Twitter, among Penguins, media. It's the fact that he came over as a 20-goal scorer, a perennial 20-goal scorer. We already talked this episode of what Jake Gensel has become with 5 straight 20-goal seasons. That's about the same level that Jason Zucker was on, maybe a little bit lower. I don't think anybody was ever calling him elite, but He was still a 20-goal scorer, a guy that was known for putting the puck in the back of the net. And he has struggled since becoming a member of the Pittsburgh Penguins, other than that brief stint in that first season in 2019-20 when he played alongside Sidney Crosby. But a lot of people didn't want to see him on the second line with Malkin when he returned. That's exactly where he went, because Mike Sullivan still has faith in this guy. And when you heard him say the fact that, this guy is always leading us in the games that he plays in high danger chances and in great scoring chances, it sounds like a guy that the coaching staff has tremendous faith in. And it doesn't sound like a guy that they'd be willing to trade. And I know that at the end of the day, it's not Mike Sullivan's decision whether or not Jason Zucker stays or if he goes. But when you hear a coach speak that highly of him, I know you could always say maybe he's just trying to up the trade value. When I hear him say stuff like, I love what I see him with Kapanen and Malkin, and also when it says it seems like he does everything right except a little bit of finish, that sounds like a player that Mike Sullivan wants to keep on this team. So I always thought, especially the last couple of months when he was injured, when he wasn't scoring prior to his injury, that he was a guy that's probably on the top of the trade block for the Pittsburgh Penguins. Hearing these comments, and they are just comments, so take them with a little bit of a grain of salt, but hearing these comments makes me think, doesn't sound like a guy who's going to be on the trade block come the deadline here in 2 months.
No, I guess it really doesn't. It's just, he is right, though. I mean, he's 5th on the team in shots, and that's while missing 7 of the games. Just, you look at, especially the season that Zucker wanted to have. He came in saying he had to shoot more. He came in saying he had to score more, and that would happen by shooting the puck more. Clearly, he's doing that. I mean, maybe we're just giving him his fair shake on it, and that's perfectly okay. It's not like he's a bad player in any sense of the means. He's not, bringing this team down a peg. He's not hurting this team. He is helping them. He's not a liability, I guess, is what I'm getting at. So I'm perfectly okay with keeping him around, too. Whatever we have to do to help him get better, help him improve his game, and see him take off, I'm all for it. The numbers don't look great right now in those 31 games, only 6 goals and 7 assists, but stuff takes time, maybe.
I think the one thing that we've seen this year that's different from last season, especially when he plays on that second line with Malkin, last year it just seemed like he was a passenger. This year, it seems like he's actually trying to force the issue and is genuinely not getting good puck luck. He got good puck luck on Monday, and he got 2 goals. But he doesn't seem like a passenger, and I think that's a positive. Now, do I think that he deserves to be on that line over a guy like Evan Rodriguez? Not necessarily, and we'll talk about the lineup here in a minute. But honestly, as long as he's not a passenger, I'm okay with him taking up the left side on that second line.
Yeah, I'm about that. Like I said, as long as he can hold to his word where he said he's got to shoot and score more, I can put him wherever.
Yeah. So let's talk really quickly before we move into a preview of this weekend for the Pittsburgh Penguins, because it'll be a busy weekend for the boys in black and gold. Before we get to that, let's discuss the fact that, it seems like Zucker, barring a monumental drought on his case, or at least a second one this year, will be on that second line. Let's pull up the roster and the lineup from Monday night's game, because it seems like the Penguins are getting close to full health. Here's what their lineup looked like on the forward side: Gensel, Crosby, Rust, Zucker, Malkin, Kapanen, and then the bottom 6, because at that day, the Penguins were only missing Zach Aston-Reese and Danton Heinen. It looks like Mike Sullivan set up this lineup to where he can just plug and play those 2 guys when they come back to healthy. Simone, Carter, Rodriguez, I would imagine that Simone spot is reserved for Danton Heinen. Boyle, Bluger, McGinn, I would imagine that Boyle spot is reserved for Zach Aston-Reese. So that's basically what the lineup's going to look like. It's become a little bit more clear as to what Mike Sullivan thinks of this team at full health, which, again, knock on wood that we get to see it for more than one game. But with full health, that's what this lineup appears to be. Horwat, what do you think of this lineup as of now?
I enjoy it. This is almost exactly what I wanted to see. I can't think of too many faults that are sticking out to me. Danton Heinen has shocked the world and is going to be useful wherever he goes.
Yep.
And Brian Boyle, like we mentioned, being a 13th guy, or swapping Boyle and Simone for as 13th guys, depending on necessity for a game. I like that option. That's a good little it's a good little utilization of those guys. And obviously that's Zach Aston-Reese's spot. There's no question about that. We love putting that fourth line together and gluing it together. It might be the second most glued fourth line aside from the Islanders' fourth line.
When I look at this lineup, and yeah, I think Evan Rodriguez, it stinks that he gets demoted to the third line. But also at the same time, you look at that line, Jeff Carter has 11 goals. Evan Rodriguez has 15. I don't have it in front of me, but I'm pretty sure Danton Heinen has 9 or 10. That's probably one of your highest scoring lines right now when it comes to the actual statistics. Now, I understand Evgeny Malkin has only played how many games, but that line as a third line is heavily dangerous in the offensive zone. And then, of course, we already know how that Bluger, McGinn, Zach Aston-Reese line can play. So when I look at that lineup, I think it could stack up against basically anybody in the Eastern Conference, probably anybody in the league, at least at the forward side.
Dan Heinen has 9 goals, by the way. So, yes, pretty close. Yeah, I like that line. And I've said it. I mean, Rodriguez can't hold that pace forever.
No, but at the same time, when he's playing this well, wouldn't you want to, like, I don't know. Here's the thing, though. The only person that I would knock out of the top 6 for Evan Rodriguez is Jason Zucker. And we just had a long conversation about why it's okay that he's at in the second line. So these are great problems to have for Mike Sullivan. And when I look at this lineup, I mean, this is a lineup that has only been seen on Cap Friendly when people are putting lineups together. This has only been seen on the Notes app when people are putting them together. It has not been seen on the ice at all, ever.
Yeah.
So the fact that we might see that this weekend, potentially, is something that is absolutely phenomenal. I mean, you also look at the back end that has been set basically for a long time now. And the only person other than those 2 forwards that's missing right now is Casey DeSmith. And I don't think that he gets the next start as a backup. I think Louis Domingue gets a start this weekend.
Give him that nod. I look at Evan Rodriguez, though, as let's say he does keep up that pace, or it returns to earth a little, but he's still, bonkers. That's a third line threat. That's nothing to complain about then. Just tell him to don't change your game. Your minutes might be a touch lower, especially with, Mike Sullivan here, who doesn't like numbering the lines.
Mm-hmm.
That's just a third line threat now. That's all that is. And you got to appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
Now you can look at all 4 lines and say, there's someone on each line here, maybe not the 4th because that's our defensive line, but Brock McGinn might come into his own.
Mm-hmm.
There's someone on each line here who can produce offensively. Mm-hmm. This is good stuff all around.
Yeah, and I also, one last thing before we move on to a weekend preview for the Pittsburgh Penguins. When I look at this lineup and I look at that third line, I think of last postseason. And we loved the third line last postseason of Jeff Carter, Jared McCann, and, Frederick Gaudreau.
Freddie.
Evan Rodriguez is a much higher scoring threat this season than Freddie Gaudreau was last season. So the fact that we were comfortable with that third line last year heading into the playoffs and in that first round series, I would think, honestly, I think Danton Heinen is an upgrade, or at least leveled out with Jared McCann. And I think Evan Rodriguez is far and away an upgrade offensively than Freddie Gaudreau is. And these guys are all defensively responsible. This is a better third line this year than it was during the playoffs last season.
Yeah, and we were a good team in the playoffs last season. We just couldn't get a save. Now, even if Jari doesn't make saves, hell, if we can win it in a firefight, screw it. That's a way to win, right? You don't want to do that every game, but sometimes you need to win those firefights.
And the way I also look at this too is 3 of those 4 forward lines are phenomenal in their own zone. Mm-hmm. I mean, this team's trademark this year has been defensive hockey. So even if it is a firefight, even if Justin Jari isn't on his game, I think the team is in a much better position defensively to be able to insulate him and protect him.
Look at the Vegas game.
Exactly.
Look at the Vegas game. Jari led up 3 early. I did see that first goal he let in. Dear Lord, man.
Yeah.
Let's say he's pulling that shit in the playoffs. Guess what? We can shut it down defensively from a forwards and defenseman's aspect. And then the forwards can pop off and score 5. Mm-hmm. Jari just has to make his couple. I don't know how many shots Vegas had. I don't know how many more they
26.
were able to rip on him. 26 that's not too high. I'm trying to remember. The average usually sits around 30.
30 to 32, I think, is what we usually see. But I feel like anything lower than 30 is a low shooting game, especially against a team that's in first place in the Pacific.
That's exactly the way I look at that too. It's anything below 30. It's okay. They didn't average 10 shots a period. That sounds below average. So if we shut them down and stop them from shooting the puck. That's exactly what we want to see, especially if the goalie, let's say it's Louis Domingue in there. Let's say it's Casey DeSmith in there too. Those guys we are not fully confident in yet, but shutting down shots is a perfect way to build some confidence in your goalie and for your goalie. Mm-hmm. So, win those firefights.